Robin was Keating. Keating was Robin. And that's what's conveyed. And was the power of working with him in person, that it was transcendent, really.
Keating is looking to inspire these boys to live their lives to the fullest and to seize hold of their future.
What will your verse be?
It's heartbreaking to watch his attempts to inspire spiral out of control. There's got to be a balance, because rules should be questioned, authority should be questioned, but at the same time, it doesn't mean we just descend into chaos.
What about carpe diem and sucking all the marrow out of life?
Sucking the marrow out of life doesn't mean choking on the bone.
I'm getting emotional right now because Robin Williams was a hugely formative part of me growing up. It's lovely to hear these stories.
Thank you, boys.
I guess I'm just asking what every movie file wants to know. Working with Robin Williams, tell us a bit about your experience.
Welcome to Cinema Therapy. My name is Alan Seawright. I'm a professional filmmaker who needs therapy. That is
Jonathan Decker, licensed therapist who loves movies, and joining us today,
Gale Hansen, the actor who plays Charlie Dalton, my personal favorite character in Dead Poets Society, the classic film.
Nwanda, yo!
It is Nwanda. Gale, since acting, you took a bit of a left turn in your career, and since then he has been a studio executive on a bunch of our favorite films, including
3:10 to Yuma.
One of my personal favorites, The Social Network, and a movie that not nearly enough people saw, Paul. Did you ever see Paul?
Yeah,
the
Paul
alien
was hilarious,
movie with
yeah.
Simon Pegg?
Are you gonna probe us? Why does everyone always assume that? What am I doing? Am I harvesting farts? How much can I learn from an ass?
What?
Oh, it's a pleasure to have you here, Gale.
Hey guys, long-time watcher, first-time caller. I love all the episodes I've seen so far. They're just fantastic. And adore you guys for doing this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's talk about a movie that probably wouldn't get made anymore, speaking of the decline of Western civilization. In Dead Poets Society, I really want to focus on your character. Obviously, there are fabulous arcs for so many of the characters in this film, but since we got you, we're talking Charlie. Jonathan, I'd like you to look at the themes of conformity versus rebellion, where Charlie goes full Nwanda. Is that healthy?
Yeah.
Is this what we should be striving for? Is there a middle ground? Where do we want to land that is, good for internal consistency, but also, just overall mental health, well-being? I'm going to stop talking now. That was too much rambly verb garbage.
Okay, so how do we figure out who we are and who we want to be?
What the hell is going on here? Don't hear enough rips.
Miss Keating. Mr. McAllister.
I mean, ripping out the pages of the poetry book.
I didn't know you were here.
I am.
So you are. Excuse me.
Ripping out the introduction, which is all no heart,
Keep ripping, gentlemen.
all brain.
This is a battle. A war. And the casualties could be your hearts and souls. Thank you, Mr. Dalton.
Honestly, the only reason I included this clip, Gale, I just want to know, was that you, was that Peter Weir, or was that in the script to stick the paper in your mouth?
Certainly it was an improvised bit of business, as it were. They shot each and every one of us to see what our spontaneous reaction would be. And so, I think it came from the impulse of go ahead and follow instruction to destroy this book. But when the other teacher walks in, don't get caught. What do you do with the evidence? You eat it.
And that's the thing for me about Charlie is he's anti-authoritarian, and then his teacher fans the flames of that. And for the other students, it's an awakening because they've been so suppressed and repressed that it's helping them to develop their individuality. Whereas with Charlie...
For Charlie, it's honing an edge on the blade. It's
Yeah.
like it was already there and it was already swinging.
It was already there, it's already swinging. There's a danger with Charlie receiving all of this because it just feeds into what he already had. And that's the thing is, there's got to be a balance. Because rules should be questioned. Authority should be questioned. But at the same time, it doesn't mean we just descend into chaos, right? And that there needs to be some sort of order. And I watched this film, and for Robin Williams' character, it's heartbreaking to watch his attempts to inspire spiral out of control,
Yeah, on
and
occasion.
For Charlie, he's kind of becomes a little bit Lord of the Flies, and I love it.
It's such a fun journey to go on.
This video is sponsored by Day One Journal.
I don't have a Dead Poets Society to bare my soul to, but I do have Day One Journal, which is an app that I've actually used for years to write down my own thoughts and feelings as part of my healing and therapy journey. Been using it since 2019.
It's a good thing because journaling can be a really helpful therapeutic practice. Like individuals going through a challenging life transition like a loss or divorce or addiction recovery, find that journaling is a great way to express emotions, reflect on experiences, and find peace in their own words.
I've also used a bunch of the premium features. I have a gratitude journal, and I actually record video affirmations to myself.
That's so
which
sweet.
Sounds really lame when I say it out loud, but it makes me feel nice.
No, that's self-love at its finest. Folks, you can get 2 months of Day One Premium for free by using code CinemaTherapy at dayoneapp.com/cinematherapy. I like to use Day One to distress at the end of a hard day, and also I feel like my life is the greatest thing I've ever received, and just keeping track of it so I can look back on the lessons that I've learned and relive memories. I know any journal can do that, but what Day One adds is I can do photo inserts and video inserts, and then at the end, if I want, I can print and make it into a book.
Dude, that book thing is so cool. I would like to order one, but I've only taken terrible pictures. Whether you want to start journaling to help in your healing journey like me,
Or relieve stress,
or organize your artistic ideas like I should,
or preserve memories, check out Day One. Go to dayoneapp.com/cinematherapy and use code
CinemaTherapy.
for a 2-month free trial of Day One Premium.
That's DAYONE app.com/cinematherapy, and see why it's the #1 journaling app in the entire universe that we know of.
We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race, and the human race is filled with passion.
This is the thesis of our entire show.
Medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. To quote from Whitman, "O me, O life of the questions of these recurring, of the endless trains of the faithless, of cities filled with the foolish, what good amid these, O me, O life?" Answer, that you are here, that life exists and identity, that the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. That the powerful play goes on and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
Everything is contained in both Bobby and Ethan's eyes and their behavior. Everything.
There's something special about sitting in a room full of strangers and having a shared emotional experience while 30-foot high Robin Williams is expounding the beauty of the universe and all of these, we now know, Titan actors as young men and boys are just like absorbing it, and getting that feeling in a giant close-up of a face there's something special about it.
Yeah.
You look at Robin in that scene, and Robin was Keating. Keating was Robin. And that's what's conveyed. And was the power of working with him in person, that it was transcendent, really.
I guess I'm just asking what every movie file wants to know. Working with Robin Williams, tell us a bit about your experience.
He's just an amazing, sweet, and generous, inclusive human being, which was staggering. The first time we met, he snuck up behind me and he whispered from behind me, he goes, "Yeah, we have a lot in common." And I turned around, I was like, "We have nothing in common." And he was like, "No, I studied with John Houseman and you studied with Sandy Meisner." And in that one moment, and that was the thing about him, he found one thing that was deep within you, within each one of us, to connect with, and inspired a relationship, right?
Yeah.
That was to find out how we uniquely related to each other. And the wisdom of being able to do that deliberately or instinctively as a creative artist meant that from that moment on, no matter what was going on, I viewed him and treated him with that connection. Off camera, on camera, it didn't matter from then on. It was a beautiful, benign, emotional manipulation of another actor. No, because that's what acting is.
That's what it is.
It is
It's exactly what it is.
manipulation.
Yeah.
But it's benign, and it's with, mutual consent. And he did that so effectively with every one of us that acting with him, living truthfully moment to moment, became effortless. His inclusive nature, made you want to follow him like a Pied Piper. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You just wanted to be with him. You wanted to please him.
I know I can speak for you on this. Robin Williams was a hugely formative part of me growing up. This film, obviously, there was a whole string of... He did a lot of kind of family-friendly films.
Yeah.
Right when we were at the age where we were watching family-friendly films with our family.
Hook, Mrs. Doubtfire, etc. Yeah. Jumanji.
Aladdin,
Yeah,
Jumanji.
Aladdin.
Like, he was very much a part of my life. A lot of my humor is based on... I found out that he did stand-up that was not family-friendly at all. And that was a huge educational moment for me as a 10-year-old to be like, whoa, wow, you can use the F word and make it funny. I'm getting emotional right now because... he was so important to me, and I never even met him. So, it's lovely to hear these stories.
Charlie's been at this stuffy school with people who are just wound way too tight, and finally here is a teacher who speaks to who Charlie is. I don't know if Charlie was like this before, but something has definitely awakened in him of, this is what I'm all about. This is who I want to be.
Why do I stand up here? Anybody?
To feel taller.
No. Thank you for playing, Mr. Dalton. I stand upon my desk to remind myself that we must constantly look at things in a different way. See, the world looks very different from up here. You don't believe me? Come see for yourselves. Come on.
Charlie's first on his feet.
Yep.
Just when you think you know something, you have to look at it in another way. Even though it may seem silly or wrong, you must try. Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think. Boys, you must strive to find your own voice. Because the longer you wait to begin, the less likely you are to find it at all. Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. Don't be resigned to that. Break out. Now don't just walk off the edge like lemmings. Look around you.
Speaking to identity formation and figuring out who you are and what you want out of life, it's kind of like figuring out what you want to eat, and you can sample different things until you say, oh, that's it.
Right.
And you can do that with perspectives. That's why it's so important to read. That's why it's so important to expose yourself to different ways of thinking, to different minds, to different experiences. Because how do you know what's a fit for you unless you shift? And so Keating encouraging everyone to change their perspective, in this case, to literally see the classroom from a different angle, because they're so used to just like sitting and looking up, and and a lot of the camera work is their view looking up. And so to get up on the desk, it's the same space, but it's completely different, right? And just how crucial that is in figuring out who we are.
Oh, 100%. Like you said, we were always looking up, and to be invited by an influential adult to say, come see it from my point of view, is also an invitation to say that between the time of you being 16 and where I am, your perspective is going to change. And I'm encouraging you to give yourself the patience to try different things to learn who you eventually will be.
When you talk about, Gail, Robin seeing something to connect with every actor, every young man actor, and getting to know them, to me, that's both Robin Williams, but that's also what a great teacher does. So he's being Keating. Keating knew all the names of all those boys and cared about them enough to be invested in their lives. And from what you're saying, he did that, I mean, it's repeated several times throughout the film by the adult characters that they can think when they're older. They can...
No, we don't want them to think now. Maybe in college.
Yeah, they can make decisions when they're older, and they can explore who they are when they're older. Right now, they need to conform because years and years and decades and hundreds of years of tradition have established this is the best path forward for them to prepare them. And so many of them don't question anything until Keating.
The best path for who? For what?
Yeah.
You know? Then you get someone like Keating coming along and saying, I've been where you are, and now I'm here. And everything you're being told, for the most part, is to slot you towards something that may not be your destiny.
Yeah.
And the problem is that you don't have enough information or experience to know the difference. And so I'm here to be a beacon to say, be patient with yourself, right? And things will change. And even after college will become the time that you discover your true self and your true destiny.
This is why I think the film still resonates and is applicable, because in today's climate, it would be easy to say, well, yes, we love Robin Williams, but this is a movie about a bunch of young white men in the 40s and 50s, so who really cares anymore? But if you get to what you're talking about, they're on the cusp of the world changing radically, and their educators are trying to train them to just carry the flag forward, just carry things on the way that they were, and to resist change, to resist any different way of thinking, and to just hold to tradition. Boom, 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 boom. And Keating is saying, carpe diem, seize the day, open your mind, right? And figure out what you believe and who you are and what you want. And that's why it's still such a potent, powerful story for everybody, is because there's always going to be somebody telling you what to think, how to think, and what to do and who to be. Instead of saying how to think critically so you can weigh, is this moral? Is this ethical? Is this a good decision that will support me psychologically and emotionally and relationally through my life? Or is it something where I'm just doing what I've been taught to do? And that's why I think it's still such a powerful story for everybody.
Right.
And this is where we're going to see Charlie, because he's been marinating in everything Keating's telling him. This is a really powerful moment in the story for me as somebody who seeks in counseling to inspire people to open their minds and make positive changes, is that sometimes I give counsel or I say things, but once it's out of my mouth, I don't have control over how people apply it or interpret it, right? And Charlie is going to say, yes, progress, yes, change. And while Keating is saying, let's do it smart over time, and let's honor the institutions around us even as we push them forward, Charlie's just going to say, let's just burn the whole thing down and do something different.
This week's issue of Wealth and Honor, there appeared a profane and unauthorized article. Rather than spend my valuable time ferreting out the guilty persons, and let me assure you I will find them, I am asking any and all students who know anything about this article to make themselves known here and now. Whoever the guilty persons are, this is your only chance to avoid expulsion from this school.
Welton Academy. Hello? Yes, he is. Just a moment. Mr. Nolan, it's for you. It's God. He says we should have girls at Welton.
Let girls into the school.
I gotta tell you, man, my entire sense of sarcasm was based on that one scene for a long time.
If you think, Mr. Dalton, that you're the first to try to get thrown out of this school, think again. Others have had similar notions and have failed just as surely as you will fail. Assume the position.
So he gets paddled brutally, but we don't show it here on YouTube. But it's a miserable thing to watch. And they all think that he ratted them out, who the dead poets are. Because who's going to undergo that and not break? Not just physically, but psychologically, especially as a teenager.
You kicked out?
No.
So what happened?
I'm to turn everybody in, apologize to school, and all will be forgiven.
So what are you gonna do? Charlie.
Damn it, Neil. The name is Nawanda.
For those who haven't seen the film, and really you need to, Nawanda is Charlie's Dead Poets Society code name. This is basically the Resistance, right?
Yep.
And that's his resistance name. It's basically saying, I'm not going to rat you guys out.
I think it goes beyond that. I don't know. Gail, I'd love you to speak to this, but it seemed to me that he's breaking free of not just Welton Academy, but like he's taking Keating's advice and breaking free of everything that society expects from him, including the name his parents gave him.
Yeah.
It's just, this is not what I chose, and now I choose, and I choose Nuwanda, and I'm going to be Nuwanda, is always the read I took from it.
Oh, 100%. You know, it's being given permission by somebody influential, right? To go all the way with it and give you the philosophy, as it were. And then making that little jump going, yeah, but we're doing this anonymously, invisibly. If we're really doing this, right, the reality of doing leads to the reality of being. Let's manifest this out loud, you know. And the first one to jump takes everybody with them. I'm going to force these guys out into the open with me, you know, and then the world will deal with us. But it's ill-informed because he doesn't have enough experience aggregated to understand the risk. Again, it's a lack of prefrontal cortex at that point, right? What ends up happening is when you present yourself as the tallest nail, you get the hammer, because that's how they beat us into submission, to make us continue to repress and suppress ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and what I really like about Charlie in that scene, to your point of he jumps off and he takes everyone with him, but he doesn't really count the cost. Once the cost is apparent before him, he pivots and says, well, I'm the one who leaped. None of these guys wanted to jump with me, so I'm not going to take him down with me.
Right.
Like, I thought, okay, we'll take a stand together and we'll change things together and then we'll be grateful. But no, this is serious consequences, and I'm consenting to this because I made the choice, but I'm not going to force it on anybody. And to the point about Keating sending these ideas into the world with these boys but not having control over what the boys do with them, Keating's going to try and dial it back in the most Keating way possible, which is not to renounce what he said to the boys, but just to urge a little bit more wisdom.
Yeah.
Assume the position, Mr. Dalton. Beans.
All right, gentlemen.
Mr. Keating,
Mr. Dalton, it was a pretty lame stunt you pulled today.
you're siding with Mr. Nolan? What about Carpe Diem and sucking all the marrow out of life?
Sucking the marrow out of life doesn't mean choking on the bone. See, there's a time for daring, and there's a time for caution. And a wise man understands which is called for.
But I thought you'd like that.
No. You being expelled from school is not daring to me, it's stupid. Because you'll miss some golden opportunities.
Yeah, like what?
Like, if nothing else, the opportunity to attend my classes. Got it, Ace?
Aye, Captain.
Keep your head about you. That goes for the lot of you.
Yes, Captain.
Yes, Captain.
Phone call from God. If it had been collect, it would have been daring.
The thing that I love about that scene, you know, it was very much the convergence of Robin with Keating, Keating with Robin, was coming in there, knowing that he was culpable for a certain amount of, you know, inspiring this kid to act out.
Yep.
And like you said, not knowing how it was going to act out. But the way Robin comes in, slight tone of, you know, apology, but this is something he's got to do for the greater good of saving this kid from himself. But if you look at it and you feel it and you hear it, there's so much empathy in Robin as Keating and Keating towards Charlie to go, I got to teach you that if you do this the wrong way and you fall, you break. They will break you. But if you do this the right way and you fall, you'll bounce.
Yeah.
And it's so critical for, you know, helping a mind, you know, growing from teen to adult.
Because when you're a teenager, you think you're invincible, and that's physically and socially and legally. And all that.
Yes. Yes, exactly. Yeah, to your point about Robin's performance and the script in that scene, and a huge credit to your performance as well. It's such a tough line to walk. Here's an angry kid who has just been slapped, like physically slapped down from doing what he thinks is right. And the turn to humor, where he's like, I'm not reaching this kid, I'm not reaching this kid, I'm not reaching this kid. I can turn it on a joke and make it at the same time self-deprecating and self-aggrandizing, and that's what's going to get this kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really how he goes, don't do it. Okay, do it, but don't do it like that. Learn
Not
how
like
to
that.
do it in a very subversive way, the way that he does.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, and Charlie's used to being lectured at for misbehaving. And so the moment he gets a whiff of, not you too, Keating, and Keating, it's like, oh, I'm going to pivot. And you see this actually throughout the film. I get the sense that Keating, when he was young, was also the class clown. So when Charlie does stuff, instead of getting upset or reprimanding him or disrespecting him, Keating will sometimes acknowledge it with like a wisecrack right back at Charlie, and then Keating's right back on the track he was.
Why does the writer use these lines?
Because he's in a hurry.
No. Ding! Thanks for playing anyway.
He knows.
Yeah, he knows. And then Charlie's, instead of feeling like, okay, I'm dealing with some buttoned up, crusty adult, I'm dealing with somebody who gets me, but also has a job to do, and I respect that. Yeah. It's kind of like in anime where someone's like Dragon Ball Z, like they're channeling energy at you and you catch it and then like push it back at them.
Yep.
And Keating, yeah, it's brilliant. And I look at this, and this is kind of the crux of Charlie's arc, which you had a major hand in creating how it actually lands, is he needs guidance. Yes, push against the system. Yes, push for change and growth. Yes, explore bold new ideas instead of just staying stagnant. But be smart about it. And don't be cocksure and headstrong. Like, know when to be brave and to push, and know when to be smart and to bide your time. And also know when, well, actually, this institution or that tradition is there for a legitimate reason because it's a good thing and it works, you know, but you have to have the ability to reason and think through it. And I see that as Keating's legacy to Charlie. And when Charlie, towards the end, refuses to rat out anybody and refuses to rat out Keating, which he's the only one.
Right.
The others are deeply ashamed and apologetic, and the "Oh Captain, my Captain" scene is their way of making amends and showing respect. But Charlie's the one who says, I'm not selling you out. You've changed my life. And that is beautiful and powerful, and you absolutely nail it. So hats off to you, as if you haven't received enough praise for this performance from decades ago, but maybe it's time you get some new light shined on it and new generation discovering it. So well done, Gail, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys.
So until next time.
Carpe diem.
God damn it, Neil. It's Nawanda.
It's God. He wants you to watch Cinema Therapy.
And watch movies. We want to thank our patrons for supporting this show and getting a much longer version of this episode with Gail Hansen. Patrons like
Yuna Caddy,
Little Miss T-Bear,
Fran Lolacono,
Jimmy Daniel, that's one word,
and Molly Suede. Thank you
that's the name.
thank you for supporting us and for enjoying our Patreon. We love you. Bye.